Namaste, guys. I am Dr. Anushruti and I am back with an amazing episode. Who is not afraid of weight gain? Who is not afraid of putting on weight? But do you know the real pain and real struggle, the real fear is when you have to lose weight. Losing weight is the real struggle where people actually find them unanswered on so many questions. So, to answer all these questions, to make you aware about your weight gain and your weight loss journey, especially when it comes to women, I have a beautiful woman out there with me, Dr. Faith. Well, Dr. Faith, aka your faithful doctor, who is a hormone doctor and helps women lose weight, reclaim energy and confidence by optimizing hormones. So, what are we waiting for? Let's directly speak to her. Hello, Dr. Faith, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be here, specifically talking about women and weight loss. It's difficult because we don't get the same recognition as men, and we are kind of grouped into the same category as them, but our bodies and our physiologies are just completely different. So we just need a completely different conversation than a lot of the research that we have out here. So I'm excited to chat.
Absolutely. Well, when two women are together, why not to have a girl power thing? So, all the lovely women who are listening to this, watching this episode right now from all over the world, and the strong men out there who are listening this on behalf of their beautiful wives, sisters, and mother, this is for you guys. Starting with the very first question, Dr. Faith, how do you explain hormone to people who have zero idea about biology and science? What exactly is a hormone in our body? What does it work for?
So hormones, I always like to speak of them as they're kind of like signals. Inherently our organs can't really talk to each other like we would talk to each other as people. So they're fat, so they're not like of the water variety, and that means that we need to eat fat to be able to make them. However, they go through our bloodstream to have our organs and our tissues talk to each other to tell them to do things. So it's how our body kind of functions, and they control different aspects of our bodies depending on what our body needs to do. So if we need to burn more calories to get energy so that we have more, and so we have more energy to wake up during the day, or that our bodies are warm enough, that's a particular type of signal. Versus if we need to make an egg to be able to have a baby, we need to have a different signal from that. And they come from different tissues because our body needs to have things in place to make sure they don't go crazy. But then things like our diets or our lifestyle habits can kind of throw off these signals, and they can give you different symptoms based on what their levels are in your body. So if you've got an over or an under amount of that particular signal, then it'll give you different symptoms depending on where it came from and what it normally controls.
Absolutely. Well, all the women out there in the audience right now would have heard about mood swings through hormones, but weight gain because of hormones and weight loss because of hormones is something really new to us. So please elaborate a little more about this. How is our hormone responsible for our weight gain and weight loss?
Great question. So we have around 50 plus different types of hormones out there, and then there's a whole bunch of other signals in our bodies and little pathways in between. But I find clinically there's about 8 different problematic hormones, or hormones when they get thrown off that'll make you have things like mood swings and other symptoms that aren't great. But when it comes to weight loss and weight gain, we have hormones that control our metabolism. And when I say hormones, I'm going to have you think of interchangeably these signals that are telling your body to do something that isn't necessarily helpful because it doesn't know it's got too much or too little of that particular signal. So things like your thyroid gland, you might have heard of your thyroid, which is a little gland that sits right in the front of your neck. It controls your metabolism, and a metabolism is the rate at which you burn calories. And so you're eating food, it's turning into a broken down molecule that we're going to use for calories. Those calories then transition to how much energy your body could use. However, if your thyroid isn't working correctly, then you aren't going to be utilizing the proper amount of signals to tell your body to burn those calories. So you might be eating those calories and your body's just going to store them rather than using them for energy. things like insulin, which controls your blood sugar levels, which is when you don't eat fast or you don't eat enough and you feel like you're going to pass out or you don't have enough energy. That also controls how much your body stores fat or uses fat. Your testosterone is another really good example where we know it mostly for men and a lot of muscular. But here's the thing, a lot of your body is made of muscles. Your heart is made of muscles. So if you don't have enough testosterone, you're going to have a lower metabolic rate. You won't have as much muscle to be able to burn the fat. And then it can get kind of wonky from there. But there tends to be about 8 of them that control both your hunger and the way that your body stores and utilizes fat for weight loss.
Absolutely, beautifully explained hormone. Well, when should a person actually consult a hormone doctor like you? Like my people, my audience, when should they contact Dr. Faith?
That's also a really good question. I think when you have tried to do the traditional exercising more, reducing the high caloric intake of things that aren't so great for you, trying to do those anti-inflammatory kind of protocols, and you're just not seeing any shift in weight, or you're working out extremely and you're eating a lot less and you just don't see the scale move or your clothes change size, that's usually the time when we want to start looking into hormones because those signals control how those work. And if those are off, you're going to be fighting your body the whole time, and you're not going to be able to actually shift any weight, which is a good time to actually start looking into the signals in your body to make sure those are working correctly. And if those are working correctly, then it might just be something else that we need to look into.
Okay, now we are moving on to the segment where we burst myths and facts about Instagram doctors. Now, what are Instagram doctors? The doctors without degree and a lot of followers. We all have come across such Instagram pages who claim to be doctors and just post things unauthentic, I would say, without any responsibility. So, to save my audience from all these things, I have Dr. Faith with me to answer whether this post is a myth or a fact. So, the first post says eating chocolates affects your hormone in a bad way and that leads to weight gain. Is that a true thing or is it a myth?
I would say that's 100% a myth. Chocolate has so many amazing properties to it. It's got diabromo cacao. Since I'm an integrative doctor, I know botanical medicine very well as well, which is like a calming, relaxing. It's got a ton of magnesium. Your body needs magnesium to be able to utilize different processes so that your hormones can work efficiently. We don't get enough magnesium usually in our diet anyway, so it's always good to add that in. I would say when it comes to the sugar content in some chocolate, that could be like kind of a concern just because some of them can be really high in sugar. Dark chocolates though, and every once in a while is completely fine to have some chocolate. I mean, we're not here for restriction, we got to live our lives and chocolate is delicious and we are women and it's really good for our periods and our mindsets and honestly for us just to be human. So I would say false.
So every girl, every boy who's listening to this, enjoy your chocolates. Just enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on, I have another post which says, we cannot regulate our hormone, we have no authority over it. In women, only the menstrual cycle is responsible for it.
Oh, well, that's definitely false. We have so many different hormones that control so many aspects of our body. They're generally referring to just the estrogen and progesterone, which is like your fertility hormones, specifically to your menstruation cycles. However, I would say when it comes to any of these extreme posts, when they're saying never, like in medicine, there's never a never. Even the stuff we do know, I never say that we don't know other things because we're always learning new. Like it's kind of like new diagnoses that are coming out. We said 20 years ago that didn't exist. Fibromyalgia didn't exist 20 years ago. And now look at all these cases. So when it comes to that, we could definitely regulate our hormones, sometimes just with food, sometimes with supplementation, sometimes we need medications depending on if it's autoimmune or not. But we definitely have some control. That's what I do in my practice is I help people change their lifestyle, change their diet so that they can have more autonomy over how their body functions. Because a big portion of that is taking the control out of the woman's hand and saying, you can't do that. But we're here to empower women and say, like, absolutely, you can change all aspects of that.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, next, but the most important, it says weight loss can be done only by exercising and sweating in the gym. No hormone therapy can change it.
That's absolutely false. Because let me give you an example. Say a woman had undiagnosed thyroid concerns and they are working out. They are overly working out. Their muscles are incredibly sore. They're working out more than anybody else and they are eating 1,200 calories. It's all just very clean foods. They don't eat any fats. They don't have any carbs in their diets and they're gaining weight and they don't know why they're gaining weight because they are working out so hard. The problem is the thyroid possibly is undiagnosed being too low, or they might have something called Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is an autoimmune condition, which is when your body basically attacks your thyroid gland so it can't make the appropriate amount of hormones in it. And so it doesn't matter how much you exercise and how much you eat so little, it only matters about how your body's actually telling it what it needs to do in order for it to actually get the proper output. I have a personal story. When I just got off birth control, I could not stop bleeding. I got my hormones tested about 3 or 4 months after I got off birth control. I had absolutely no progesterone. I had absolutely no testosterone. My thyroid was a little on the low side, and I just felt awful. I was working out so hard. I was trying to lose the weight that I had gained a little bit in medical school. And it wasn't until I replaced a little bit of that thyroid, I ended up getting on testosterone for a little while to just to kind of bounce everything back because birth control has a massive negative impact on all of those hormones just because it is replacing it. And as soon as I did, I was able to drop the pounds. I was able to feel so much better in my body. The mood swings went away. The period stopped getting crazy. It was a game changer. So I definitely say when anybody says, no, you just have to work out and restrict yourself and it's your motivation, not your hormones. I don't think these people know how hormones work.
Well, bingo, you have just busted out all the myths. And here is the message for everyone listening and watching this, that do not just blindly believe whatever you see on social media. Consult a doctor like Dr. Faith and other esteemed doctors to have your proper diagnosis. Well, moving on, Dr. Faith, you would have come across a lot of YouTube videos which says lose belly fat in 15 days, lose your overall weight and become a Kylie Jenner in 20 days. So what would be your thoughts about it? Like, is it actually possible without, I mean, in a nutshell, is it true? Is it not true? And as a hormone doctor, what is your take on this thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. When it comes to these fad diets or these really quick lose weight really, really rapidly, many times that's referring to water retention because your body can let go of water retention when the foods that we eat, at least in the West, very inflammatory. Really heavy fried foods, not a lot of nutrition, not a lot of color in our diet in general. And people stress out like crazy. They don't drink enough water. They don't move their body. It's a perfect storm of just holding on to all this extra water so that your body feels very plump and very full. And so, yes, if you start
That
eating really
happens.
well, absolutely. And if you start eating really well and you start drinking a lot more water and moving your body, yes, you will lose some weight. But when it comes to fat loss, there's an appropriate amount of fat loss that you'll be losing every week without it being unhealthy. And there's ways that you can manipulate your body. You've seen this with bodybuilders. You've seen these people try to like shed fat really quickly. That is going to mess with the signals of your body or those hormones because it's not an easy on your body. It's like it's hard on the contents of your body. So a more appropriate thing to do is to look at it as a long-term gain and changing your perspective on how your body works so that you can understand that it does take a little bit longer. In the world of hormones, it takes approximately 3 months, I would say, before you really start seeing a good change in the quality of, like, say, your ovaries and your eggs and how they develop, how your body kind of repositions these signals. So you have to give your body the time to be able to fix the imbalances that are going on, even though we are impatient, we want results now and we want them forever. It does take some time and it takes your mind also some time to get used to a new routine. So the more you give yourself the time thinking about it before you start, the more you're going to have long-term success rather than these constant yo-yo diets and fad diets and possibly like weight loss teas and diet pills that a lot of people want to go for. For instance, there's a part in the United States right now where we have this controversy of semaglutide or Wegovy or these weight loss injections. I know that they're really common because these big influencers take them and they've been abusing them for a while. The problem with those is they're diabetic drugs. And so they make you really, really sick because they manipulate the hormones in your gut to be able to lose the fat and kind of play with your insulin levels. The problem with those is that once you get off of them, people struggle with a lot of the satiety, like the like feeling full after they're eating, so they need to eat a lot more. Or they're having issues with now they're not trusting themselves because a lot of them have gained a lot of weight back. So we have to think about the long-term mentality of everything as well, on top of you want to have these sustainable results. As somebody who has lost 100 pounds myself, I know what it feels like to bounce up and down 20 pounds and to feel like crap at 250 and to feel like really great at 130, but also like really tired. And so there's a sweet spot in there where your body kind of catches up with your mind and you can live there longer term.
Absolutely. Well, now I have a get gritty question for you, Dr. Faith. Now, Get Gritty with Dr. Anushruti is my podcast. So, the get gritty question for you for the day is infertility. Now, this question comes up because just very recently I just recorded a podcast with a very esteemed doctor on infertility issues. And that would be just releasing before your episode, before this episode, it would have been released. So I believe the audience who are listening and watching this just I think 2 or 3 days before they would have seen that episode. So how is infertility linked to weight gain or weight loss and to hormone? Like, is there any interconnection between the three?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple things that come to mind. Depending on what the person is struggling with, not everybody struggles with the same things when it comes to infertility. The big thing that I always want people to look into is trying to find the root cause. What is it that is causing you to not be able to conceive? Is it more that you have PCOS and that you've got cyst on the ovary so that the egg is not developing into a fully developed egg so that you can get pregnant? Is it that your thyroid is not producing enough energy for your body to make these estrogen and progesterones for your period to be regulated? When it comes to weight and fertility, I think a lot of times it's kind of a stress of the body. Your body needs to be pretty happy and content in order to feel like it's okay to have a child. We want to think about our body as back in the day when we were cave people. When we were stressed out, it was not time to have a baby, it was time to survive. And so a lot of that kind of translates to us these days where we are inundated with so much notifications and stress from work and children and family and the environment, all the things that kind of bring on to us. So infertility is closely related to hormones because hormones control how your body releases eggs and how your body develops all of those things. When it comes to weight, a lot of times if we are overweight, we could have some signals that aren't being properly produced. Sometimes the insulin levels, that can be a stressor. It can really mess with your cortisol because insulin and the stress hormone cortisol have a close relationship. Also, insulin and cortisol have a real close relationship with your thyroid. And if you don't have enough thyroid, we see that there's some infertility with that as well, because we're not being able to develop the egg. And there's also a correlation between having too much estrogen and that reduces your thyroid. So there's definitely a correlation between those as two. They are all connected because we are a human being and we are not, our parts, we are accumulation of a
I
person.
believe.
But it also has to do with our mind. And if you're massively stressed out, you're going to increase that cortisol, which is then going to have all this downstream negative hormone cascades, as we like to call it. So yeah, they are all interconnected. Whether a person wants to say it's due to one thing or another, we have to realize that we are holistically a being and that, there is always a cause underneath it.
Absolutely, absolutely, and agree with this. Well, last but not the least, the question everyone is waiting for and have come across till now to listen to that question. How does hormone or a hormone doctor really help in losing weight? So, everyone who's listening to know how to lose weight through hormone, optimizing hormone, how does this happen?
That is a great question. I always, because I'm an evidence-based doctor, I'm somebody who definitely wants to make sure that we are correcting the right things so that we don't have to waste time, energy, money. We always want to look at the hormone levels first. We always want to ask questions to be able to point us to the right testing. Generally, what I would do is that you'd have somebody go and ask all those questions of like, when I ask questions, I always ask questions based on like blood sugar levels or, is your thyroid being dysfunctional? How much stress are you under? What are you eating during the day? All of these really intimate questions, because what they do is they give me an idea of what might be going on with each hormone. So generally, once I get those kind of questions, answered, we take that and we order the right testing to be able to say, hey, maybe it's your fertility hormones, maybe it's your insulin levels. Some practitioners don't particularly understand how functional tests differ from your general tests. General like blood work is you're just looking at kind of like your blood count, looking at like how much iron you have in your blood, generally the health of your organs, but they're not looking at like your specific hormone health. We want to be looking at things like insulin and HbA1c, which is how much blood sugar you have attached to your actual like blood vessels and I mean not blood vessels, but blood cells. And then your thyroid and your vitamin D levels, because that's so important and so much deficiency happens in that, as well as your estrogen, your progesterone, your testosterone. I actually have a masterclass that I have pre-recorded on my website that if anybody wanted to learn more about that, they're more than welcome to check it out. But I always start with education first. We want to know what the problem is, so then you know how to fix it. Because once you have answers, then it's not just stabbing things in the dark. You actually have a path that you can go down. Once you figure out which hormone is kind of the problem child, that's when you can start being able to correct it with diet and exercise and lifestyle changes. Because everybody's so different. We'd like to think we're all the same and that we can just like flip a switch like we're little machines, but that's just not how it is. And we all have different life things that have contributed to where we are now. So all of that is really, really important to be able to have the proper signals so that your body can release the weight and you don't have to starve yourself and you don't have to work out for hours in the gym or have to listen to these gurus that don't know what they're talking about. Because the truth of the matter is that hormones it's a hormone game. When you're trying to lose weight, you have to manipulate and like work with the hormones that you got to make sure that your body's working properly. So you're not fighting the whole time. Because if you try to do fad diets or these massive weight loss, workouts, and you're not actually fixing the root problem, you're going to be going back to that fad diet over and over and over, and you'll go back to those pills and you'll do those Wegovys and you'll do all this stuff, and then you'll be just distrustful that your body's going to be able to do that, and you'll give up, and then in the end you won't be as happy as you know you could be if you just healed your relationship with your body, mind, and your hormones.
Absolutely beautifully explained it. So, with this, we have come to an end of this episode. Thank you so much, Dr. Faith, for joining in and taking out time from your schedule to speak to my audience and me. I really hope you enjoyed it as much as we did.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much. Well, I know by the end of this episode, you are very much clear about hormone and how is it responsible for your weight gain, weight loss, and overall health. So this is your reminder to straighten your back, have a glass of water, and move. A pro tip for today's episode: see the red flags in your health, see the red flags in your hormone, and yes, consult a hormone doctor like Dr. Faith for your proper diagnosis. We'll see in the next episode. Till then, goodbye. Take care.